Hey, hey, audio test.
Audio test.
Nice. Right. So we're gonna build this ideally in Python. So where's my cursor? There it is. I'm gonna set up a new project. I'm gonna do it with Fast API. My plan is to, in theory, have some services, one for each connector. Um, Actually, before we do this, let's to drag this over. Let's see if I can maybe map this out here a little bit. Um, Set this to private. Oops, stop streaming. Edit. Make this public. Done. Save. There we go. Now maybe people can actually join. Ah, idiot. All right. So I'm new to AcceliDraw, but I think open. No. Let's save this to disk. AcceliDraw. Micro. Know how to make a new one. Just delete everything. Okay. Maybe that works. And my idea is, let's say, uh company has user data in multiple locations, such as uh, their Postgres database in Salesforce. Sort of marketing tool. Um, they'll probably have it in some sort of data warehouse, which is BigQuery. Um, and then, in theory, each one of these is the source of truth for part of the user data. So in Postgres, they have uh, user sign up information, um, address, eh, um, Salesforce. They've got things such as uh, account/sales information. Up here they probably also have roles, permissions, things such as that. Their marketing tool, they've got campaign information, emails sent, emails read. So they want to know what they have, read for emails and things such as that. What we want to do is the goal is to take the information from each one of these sources and merge it into one, what I'm going to call a destination. So, for example, they've got a data warehouse. They want to take all this information, merge it in a data warehouse. But, actually, let's do this. Let's say they've also got their address in here in their Postgres as well as their address in Salesforce. This is a common thing you'll find in a lot of places where your application will manage part of your user information, and your sales team will also manage information for their sales leads and things like that inside of Salesforce. And what you run into is trying to keep those up to date or know what the source of truth for this information is it's hard to do, right? So what's our goal? We want to take that information, merge it into the destination, but we also want to set a source of truth for each part, uh, each, I call it a field for an entity from Virginity. So, for example, I know I want Salesforce to be my source of truth for the address. I don't want Postgres to be the source of truth. So, for example, Salesforce is the source of truth for address. So we will want to update the data warehouse as well as Postgres to update that information, right? Um, the idea being that when we update Postgres, we don't care what's in there, right? Even if it's been updated later, maybe, or more recently than the data in Salesforce. We want the Salesforce data to be the source of truth. Um, Maybe that's a bad assumption. Maybe that's something we got to think of. Um, maybe at a the if it was updated more recently than the source of truth data. Maybe it's a good thing to check probably. Um, so how should this work? Um, let's say a user is going to set up a bunch of connectors. So this would be, Salesforce. It's probably too big of a box. Um, in this case, we need a Salesforce connector. Will be a Postgres connector. Will be a we'll say we're using BigQuery for our data warehouse, and we're going to use MailChimp for our marketing tool. The user will then create an entity. So we'll let's just delete this. Do that. In this case, that's a user. And then an entity. And have a destination. Baseball destination. So hey, I see somebody's on. Just going through a quick little diagram real quick of what I'm trying to build. Let me know if you have any questions or want to throw out someone in chat. Appreciate you watching. Right now I'm trying to remember how to spell destination. Because if there's one thing Google's good for, it's spell check. We're going to say we want BigQuery to be our destination. So our entity is, in theory, going to merge over there. Then we're going to set up sources. Um, the source will be Salesforce, and inside of Salesforce, we're going to get I won't. Let's just get a new text box. get their name. So first name, last name, address, billing info. Postgres, their username, username for now. And what's there? MailChimp. We'll get the campaigns they're part of. You get emails opened. Rate, maybe. And then all of this info will feed the user, which has different rules, maybe different formatting options, things like that into that, and then that will pump off to BigQuery. There will probably have to be some sort of unifying ID for the user entity that exists inside of Unfrag, which is what my working title for this right now. Yeah, I think this might be a good place to start. I'm going to move this over to my other screen so I've got visibility on it. And let's start with Fast API. Projects, personal, and let's make a new one called Onfrag for now. Open that up. Let's open up. What is my terminal that I use? Warp. There we go. Got 3.10.5. Curious if I can get 3.10.11 on here. Or 3.11. There we go. ASDF install Python 3.11.0. So, if you're not familiar with ASDF, something kind of like PyEnv, right? Basically, it's a thing to allow you to run different runtimes of a executable or something like that. So, in this case, it's Python, but you can also use it for Node. Um, Gosh, anything you can think of, Ansible, Terraform, um, all kinds of different things. You can create your own plugin, first party plugins. They've got listed here if you want to look at that. But I find it to be super helpful. I think it works a little bit better than PyEnv. And yeah, they keep it up pretty close up to date. 3.11 took a little while to get on here, but it's here now. So I'm glad I can use it. Just got to wait for it to install. But yeah, while this is looking to install, it's done. Cool. All right, never mind. So what I need to know is uh, install it here. That's what I needed. Is what I will need to do in PyCharm is set my base interpreter. 11 bin Python. Okay. And we're going to use poetry. So go ahead and create that. Good. Which goes down over here. All right. So, PyCharm was nice enough to set some stuff up for us. Basic fast API application. We can run it. Um, Open it up. Let me change this monitor to my main display. Use as main display. There we go. Maybe. Sorry, my monitor. I just added a side monitor for 16:9, so streaming would actually work. And they're kind of in a. Let's see here. That's that. That's that needs moved up over there. There we go. Now it should be able. Perfect. Done. I thought perfect, but close enough. Let's get that off of here. Let's move this over to here. Perfect. All right. Now, if I click on this, it should, well, it still opens up over there. Weird. Anyway, as we can see, that we got hello world. And if we go to hello world / name, hello / name, sorry. Wait, hello Bob. Cool. So Fast API out of the box works as expected. So, how do we want this application to work? By default, I'm thinking I'm either going to deploy to either Google Cloud Run, or probably shouldn't, but go through the work of setting up Kubernetes and getting Kubernetes just out of the box going. Um, because I'm thinking about when let's see, let's open up a new README. Um, so I'm thinking each part of this application will be its own. I'm going to call it a service, microservice, if you will. Just so it can scale independently. So when you're thinking about the three main things, right? There was a connector, an entity, a source, and a destination, because that's four things. Let's take the entity out of it, and really just think about sources and destinations. Sources will probably need to scale a lot more, just because they're going to be doing a lot of writing versus or reading, versus destinations will be doing just basically, I would assume, one write. Because the plan would probably be, whatever triggers a entity update, the entity says, okay, for me, I need to go out and get all this information from Salesforce, this information from Postgres, this from MailChimp, build it into one entity, and then ship it off to BigQuery. Or do we make it so, like, Salesforce updates, it sends off like a webhook or something that says, hey, I updated this in Salesforce. Okay, cool. Let's update this field because it came from Salesforce, and update that in BigQuery. So maybe that wouldn't need to scale so much. It would just be the whole application needing to scale, because it's kind of a one-to-one relation. Um, hmm. Good things to think about, right? How do we want to do that? If it feels like making the webhook thing would be less overhead on our part, but what if the connector, the source, whatever, doesn't support webhooks? How would we get the information? Which makes you think, okay, but they would have to be webhooks for us to get the notification to even go out and get the sources for everything when something gets updated. Um, we can work through that when we get there. Um, so main thing I'm thinking about. Um, how do we want to set this up? Let's set this up as app. Um, Knit it. Let's just say right now we're going to uh, call it API/app backend. Um, They were going to do it with Cloud Run. And then each thing could be its own Cloud Run service versus a Kubernetes service. Basically the same thing, but I don't need to worry about the infrastructure right away. I think that makes sense. Yeah. Let's think about let's think about authentication too, right? I think I don't want to worry about authentication on my end. When this comes down the pipe and if it grows big enough, like in theory, this service could also be a source of truth. And at some point, maybe even from the start, we might be doing hosting user data, which means we'll probably need to think SOC 2 and that kind of stuff. And I don't want to have to worry about user passwords and all that kind of stuff. So, do we use Auth0? Do we use Firebase authentication? Um, our database is probably going to be Google. Oh, which one is it? They have so many databases. Bigtable. I'm going with Bigtable mostly because um, I think I want to go with NoSQL just because I don't want to have to worry about schemas and writing migrations and things like that. Maybe once we get things hammered out, we could move to Postgres or something along those lines. But right now, I don't have to worry about all that stuff. And Bigtable scales so really well. So let's do that. Um, I think I'm gonna go with Auth0 just because I've got experience with it. Got to learn something new. So let's start with that. Um, how do I like to scaffold my, or not scaffold, but architect my applications? Thinking about, maybe separating these and, the different modules and things like that. And separation of concerns make it so like, one team could work on one thing, one team could work on another. Usually I'll do something along the lines of underneath my app folder, um, I'll make something called modules. I know it's kind of conflated term now in Python. A module is in theory a thing of code, a file of code, and then a package is modules in theory is a package folder. But I like to do it this way. Then I kind of separate things down in there. Um, I'll usually move main down into app. And then I broke that. So if I go to my configuration, the application file is /app /main.py. Apply that. Okay. That should fix that. And then, okay. So I know I'm jumping around quite a bit here. Let's do this first. So if you remember right, I use ASDF. One thing that's nice about ASDF, you can set local versions of things. So like right now, my global version of Python is 3.10.5. But in this application, I always want to make sure that when I run Python from the terminal, that it's 3.11. So I do, or when somebody else comes to this application needs to do it, they can just do ASCFD install and 3.10, 3.11.0. Sorry. I have to have the file made first, I guess. Okay. So you make a dot tool dash versions file already exist. Just tell me it wouldn't exist. So now it puts 3.11.0 in here. So if I run ASDF install from this directory, it will install 3.11.0 for me if I don't have it. And it makes it really easy for making sure that everybody is using the same versions of different things inside your application when you're building it, working on it with them. Another thing I should probably set up before I really get into anything is pre-commit. So pre-commit is an easy way to handle pre-commit hooks. So let's copy this from another project. Um, so checks for large files, checks the AST, TOML, YAML files. I don't have Helm in this, so I can delete that. Checks for debug statements in the code, fixes end of files, trailing white space, PyClean for like sorts, run black, Pylint, Bandit, isort. So what does that mean? That means I need to create a new file called .bandit. If I was smart, I would have just started this application from this repo that I'm copying all this from. Then I also need a .flake8. Created in the wrong directory. That needs to go at the top. And inside of this, save that. I need a Pylint RC. See. Then in my PyProject TOML, I need to add those two things, and that will be 3.11 now. Cool. And just need a dot git ignore. There. Deleted PyCache, Bandit. Cool. Then for pre-commit, we also need to actually install it, and I think it's just pre-commit install. So show you what I'm looking at real quick. Precommit.com. Different ways to install it. I've just got it installed globally with Brew. So if you come in here, you pre-commit dash version 2.20, so it is installed. So I added my configuration. Yep, pre-commit install. Cool. So there's that. While we're doing Git stuff, off screen, I'm going to go to GitHub. I'm going to create a new repository for this. The origin and push it up. And there we go. Now it's up on GitHub, so we're good to go. Now we can actually start using Git properly. So, and my chihuahua is barking. I will be right back. He thought he needed to go outside. Then he's like, nope, I lied. I don't need to go outside. So, check out a branch. I was messing around because I'm not 100% sure how I want to do this yet. And hello to everybody that's watching. We're just kind of just hacking away here at a potential side project I'm calling OnFrag. It's sort of an ETL pipeline, sort of a different take on it that allows you to select which fields you would get from a data source rather than just copying a whole data source. Right now, we're starting with it in Python using Fast API for the back end. Yeah, so let's keep going with that. I think the first thing we want to do though, let's get authentication set up. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So I am going to over here. Oh, I've already got a browser in this window. Let's go to Auth0. Let's set up some let's back up here. Log in. GitHub. Yeah, what brought you all to the stream? Just saw the stream live and thought, let's go watch this guy not know what he's doing. Is this a development environment? Let's create that. Create an application, and this is going to be a regular web app. Let's pull this over here. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I've already got some code for this, I believe, in one of my other repositories. Actually, just going to copy that, but also see if I can maybe make it a little better. I guess, yeah, for anybody who's watching that wasn't here before, this is kind of just the quick overview of what we're trying to do over in Accelodraw. Make a new package under modules. I'm going to call this auth. And here. Sorry, my dog is going nuts. My wife is gone for the weekend, and definitely my wife's dog. So he's also going blind. He has cataracts, so he kind of walks around the house, running into things, not sure what's going on. Yeah, I feel bad for him, but poor chihuahuas. Let's make a config, and since we're using Fast API, this will be using Pydantic. Base models. So for a new Python file, I'm going to call this settings.py. So that means I need to do from Pydantic import base settings. And then, yeah, so when I develop locally, I like to use .env files. And then once I, go live in, production environments or things like that, I'll do, different ways of getting the environment variables into the environment. So something I need to do is create a .env can't get my mouse over there. Example file. So what I do is I create a .example file. That way anybody else in the future working on this can copy the example and then uh, basically just rename it. So I know all the things I need for auth 0. Something like that. And then I will need to Poetry install. Oh, what is it? project. Add python.env. And then equals local. Because I do that so when in my settings, I know if I need to use load env or not. Get my settings. If you're not familiar with load env or load.env, um, you use that to get your environmental variables from that file.env file loaded into your .env or basically your environments are going to use os.environ to get your environmental variables. So I need from .env pour load.env. Do that. Settings. So app name, call it brag. Once again, I'm just copying these from a previous thing that I have. Just because it's easy to do. Actually, let's not copy everything because I might not need it. From OS imports environ. Over here. Set that to true. Of the bool. So dot get dev node false. I missed my equals. Right. So I just had to respond to a Facebook message from the wife. So another thing I really like to do, you could do all of your settings in one huge file and, under just the base settings, under settings. What I like to do is under config, now I'll create a new file for authentication. So I'm just going to call it auth.py. And then in auth.py, what I'll do is I know I'm going to use a OAuth 2 provider. So first thing I'm going to do is pull that in. Then I'm also going to need from Pydantic import base settings. And then, so OAuth2 provider settings. So, well, every OAuth2 provider is going to have the same sort of setup and have a client ID, client secret, the domain, scopes, algorithms, audience, issuer, things like that. And then I know that for Auth0, if you remember right, in my .env example, I have all of these Auth0 settings that I'm going to need to get those. So I just have it set up to get it for Auth0, and then I know, like, if for whatever reason down the road we say, oh, we're going to switch from Auth0 to, you know, Firebase authentication or something like that. All I have to do is come in here and create a new Firebase authentication settings, and then you'll see here in a second how easy it'll be to switch those out. I just need to edit, find and replace env with env iron. Replace. Cool. So now what I can do is go back to my settings. And in settings, I can do auth. And that is going to be auth settings. Because over here I have I forgot one thing. Over in auth, I'm going to have one more class of auth settings. And what auth settings does for a middleware I have, instead of like have every route having to have a decorator that says, hey, we want this to be protected, we want this to be protected. I just set up a middleware that says, hey, these are my protected routes. So I've got protected routes. I set my cookie name and my ID token cookie name. And then I've got provider settings, which is an instance of OAuth2 provider settings. And right now it's Auth0 settings. So if I come over here, I do from app.config.auth, import auth settings. Do auth settings equals auth settings. Now, whenever I do, if I need to get settings in my auth settings, I can just do, settings dot auth dot, was it provider settings, client ID, if I want the client ID from here, and it works. If I need to switch out my authentication provider, all I need to do is come down here and swap out the authentication provider. And then it's easy enough to swap it out if I need to in the future. Yeah. So there's that. I'll save that. And I think the final thing I need to do is just a simple def get settings. That's going to return. I did that backwards. I did an arrow. It's going to return settings. Cool. And then down here, I just do settings. So you will get settings. Seems a little redundant, but there's some caching stuff that can come into play here. I can implement a, LRU cache if I want to later. Different things that I want to, if you need to change like which settings are returned, you can do that from there as well. So it just adds a little bit more flexibility in the future if you need it. So I talked a little bit about that authentication middleware, right? So under app, going to create a new Python package called middleware. I keep this separate from modules because in my mind, modules are things that are going to be business specific, right? That's where my business logic and the entities that represent my business and things like that are going to live. So keeping middleware and stuff like the web framework kind of stuff that the business doesn't really care about outside of that uh, feels a little bit cleaner to me. You know, could be right, could be wrong, um, but in my mind, it seems to make a lot of sense. So I'm going to create a new middleware called authentication middleware, and I'm just going to copy and paste it from a previous project again. Um, and kind of walk through it here real quick. Um, I haven't done the auth providers yet for Auth0, but we'll get to that. Um, we talked about the protected routes earlier, right? Um, so if I need to protect a route, all I do is when I'm creating a route, I call this method add protected route, pass a route into it, and then down here, I check for needs authentication or authorization. Uh, Self needs authorization. I get the path. I see if the route's in the protected routes, and yes or no. If it's not, we just return. If it does, we get the cookie out of it. Assuming you're sending through a web request with the cookie in it. If the cookie is not there, we throw a authentication error. If it's there, we validate the token. We get validate token from the auth provider because the auth provider might validate the token a different way depending on the provider. And then, yeah. So obviously this will need to be updated a little bit for if you're making an API request, right? That would have something that's like a authorization header or something like that, a bearer token. So we'll come back and do that here in a little bit. And actually, I'm going to just comment that stuff out right now because I don't need it right now. And comment that out. All right. So under modules, I will need to add in my Auth0 provider. So I'm going to create a new thing called, actually, you know what? I made the comment earlier that I like to keep just business logic like stuff out underneath modules, right? Could you argue that authentication isn't business logic? I would think so. Um, I was just told that my code isn't focused. Let's see. Let's go to YouTube. Let's go live. Did I see it focused? Did I see it focused? Maybe it's a phone thing? No, I see it. I see it good on my phone too. Hmm, interesting. Let's do this. Let's Edit. Mm, places, tags. Hmm. But anyways, back to this. Um, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna delete auth out of modules and kind of go with the idea that external services aren't part of the business and create someone up here called providers. Um, providers being something along the lines of authentication. And then under authentication, we can put auth0. And then once again, from a previous copy that in. To add auth0 dash Python. I see somebody just got in. I'm curious, when you're looking at the stream, can you read the code? I had somebody earlier tell me that it wasn't focused. And I'm also going to need authlib. Um, here with auth0 Python. So what I'm going to do is I go into my PyProject TOML. And then just do poetry install. Fuck. So, right. There we go. So I should be able to go over here. There's that. So Authlib has this really, really nice thing. It's got a Starlet client built into it when, Fast API is built off of Starlet. So you import OAuth from it, and then you register an OAuth client inside of it. Give it the name. You can call us whatever you want. It's called Auth0 because we're using Auth0. Give it the client ID, secret, scope, server metadata, and that will actually allow you, register the OAuth client with Auth0. Make sure it works. Validate the token, client ID, things like that, and that'll allow you to actually validate that the token you got is correct. So what that means we're going to need to do is go into our .env example. Open up, where's that at? Copy and paste that and call it .env. Oops. Save that. And then go back over to Auth0. Everyone, I'm just curious. I had some people earlier tell me they couldn't read my screen. If you could, just let me know in the chat if you can or cannot read my screen. If you can't, might need to see if I can figure something else out. But yeah, let me know. Logging into Auth0 real quick. Actually create one more tenant. This is gonna be somebody that I actually go through and delete, just because you're gonna see my keys and stuff here on stream, and I just want to be able to delete those when the stream is done. And then applications. And create a new application. Realize you can't see this, I'm doing it off screen. Call it a demo app. Create that. My settings. Get my client ID. Secret. Zero domain. The audience is. What is the audience? Let's see here. Quick start. Figure.env file. Maybe I don't need the audience or issuer. They just give me a ID, secret, domain, secret key. Okay. So I might not need those two things. We'll see what happens. Modules. New module. I'm gonna call this. What's we call this auth? Yeah. Why not? We can change it later, right? Auth. 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 Why not? We can change it later, right? New Python file. We'll call this routes. And from Fast API, import router. API router. Yep, there we go. Router equals API router. And call this login. Some def login. And then we need from app dot providers dot auth 0 import OAuth, right? That's what it was called. 0 OAuth. Yep. Okay. And let's see here. We need to, if I remember right, bring in the request. Start the request. Then we need a callback. Or get forward slash callback. I think we can call that URL for callback. Let's be async def callback request needs to be in there. And I think the response class is also a redirect response. I do from fast API dot responses port redirect response. There we go. And wait, L0, X0, access, so there is access token. Request, response URL. Just look at main. We'll send it to forward slash for now. Is there a way in Fast API to actually name it? Fast API name route. If that works, I have no idea. Response, redirect response is response URL. Let's just return the response for fun. All right, see if that works. Let's boot this up, stop and rerun. It's over here so everybody can see it not work. So here's this. If I go to log in, detail not found. Why is that not found? Oh, I'm an idiot. That's why. I need to go over here and from app.modules.auth. Import that. And for now, let's do it this way. App dot what is it? Add router. Where's main? Include router. Take that. And now, all right, I was thinking. Just thinking about refresh. Ending. Just play. Let's not. There we go. Okay. Seems like that should be a dependency on one of the packages I installed that requires it, but that's fine. So let's stop again, restart. Over here, internal server error. Okay. The request URL is missing HTTP or HTTPS. Here, which request URL? It's line 13. I betcha. I need to go into auth0. My application. Wrong auth0. If you've never been in the auth0 dashboard, I'm in my test delete. Go to my application, applications. I've got a demo here. And here's the, all the stuff I got before: the client ID, client secret. Log in. HTTP localhost 8000 /login. HTTP localhost 8000 /callback. Save. Offers not pass validation. Must be HTTPS. Okay. Sure. Let's just delete that. Why not? Save. All right. So now for your local host 8000 /login. Internal server. Probably the same thing. This URL was missing. HTTP. Oh, okay, that's good. And printed that. Okay. That's what we expect. I think that'll work, but just for fun. Yeah, I was gonna say no where it exists. Okay. That. Okay, still the same thing. Why not debug? Debug. Write arguments for pass to a new process creation function. Breakpoints may not work correctly. Huh. PyCharm down real quick. Hmm, interesting. Let's do this. Let's start Python 3.10 real quick. Interpreter, do poetry. Let's do 3.10.6. Bin Python. Okay. Okay. And let's go into here. Change it to 3.10. Save. No. Poetry install. Poetry lock. Poetry install. See what happens. 0 installs. Right. It's because that is still using the wrong one. Show all. Add interpreter. Add local. Poetry. Okay. Okay. Let's close that. Open terminal. 3.10. All right. So now what happens if I debug? Same thing. Because the configurations, change this to that one. Okay, well. Um, I try one more time. I turn back up. This again. Address already in use. Which address? Enough arguments. 8,000. I bet you it works. That's already needs. Okay. 8,000. /login. There we go. Look at that. We got a breakpoint and everything. So 311 must not work yet with the debugger. So let's step on in. Okay. Okay. So go back here. Stop. Refresh. Here it's settings. Off. Provider settings. OAuth client ID needs to be set. Okay. Okay. Actually, I need to go here and do from app.config.settings, import settings. Provider settings needs to be set. Interesting. So it wasn't, which makes sense. That doesn't actually make any sense why that would have worked. If we go to config settings, load.env, let's put a breakpoint there and run. Let's do Byron.get. Not loading those in. Okay. Interesting. EV is there. Names .env. Okay. And stream is none. Okay. .env. All right. So what am I building? Um. So at a lot of places they have a problem, including our place of work. There's a problem with data, right? Um. So, and by say a problem with data, I mean a problem with data from different places, uh, user data, multiple locations. So they've got it in their Postgres database, they've got it in Salesforce, their marketing tool, their data warehouse. Um, each one of these is a source of truth for part of the data, but not the whole thing. So, the Postgres database has user sign up information, roles, permissions, their address. Salesforce has account, sales information, might also have their address. The marketing tool has campaign info, emails sent out, emails read, things like that. So the goal is to take the information from each one of these sources and merge it into one destination. So set a source of truth for each field for the entity. So in the example above, like Postgres has their address, Salesforce has their address. Well, which one of these is our source of truth for the address, right? I'm going to say Salesforce just in this example, right? So when you're setting up an entity, you'll tell it which one of the data connectors holds a source of truth for a specific field. So in this case, when you're setting up user, you would tell it, okay, this user is going to have an address field, and you get that address field from the Salesforce source. You're going to get the first name, last name, and billing info also from the Salesforce source. You're going to get their username from Postgres and anything else, MailChimp, whatever. And then I'm going to build a valid user out of that and ship it off to BigQuery, or ship it off back to Salesforce, or whatever you want for your destination to be. That way, when let's say somebody goes into Postgres and updates, or goes into Salesforce and updates the address, if there ships off a webhook or something, or we do some polling to Salesforce and say, oh, this has been updated since last time we saw it. Let's grab the address, grab all this information, rebuild this user, and reship it to BigQuery. So it keeps everything cohesive. You could also have it then take the address and ship it back to Sale or Postgres, so the Postgres database stays up to date, and things like that. That's my idea. Yeah, but right now I'm just trying to get authentication to work. Hmm, that's okay. It's starting too far up. That's weird. I'm curious. That's because the configurations, working directory, app. Does that fix it? There we go. Login. Internal server error. Okay. Same thing. Routes on line 14. So there it's breaking right there. Server metadata. Oh, I couldn't even do that. Weird. Put server metadata URL. Auth0 domain needs to be up. They're still not being set. So doing that works, but I don't know why. Hmm. I don't know why PyInv is not working. Okay, so session middleware must be installed to access request session. At main 0 from Starlet middleware session support session middleware to here. Middleware dot add, right? Do, 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 do. I'll see what happens. Cut that out. Play. Waiting. What are we waiting for? Okay. Module name is dangerous. Okay. Hey, look at that. We're at a login screen. All right. Took a lot longer than I thought it was going to. Oh, man. All right. So now I need to create a user. Users. Create user. Eight. Accept. Internal server. No route exists for name and brand 0. Let's just do this. Modules, dashboard. Oops. Name. That's fine. Everything is fine. For dashboard. Save. Let's set that as a login. All right, we're logged in. We got hello world. If we go to app main now, I bet you actually if we just go up here and go inspect, location, local storage, I'm not setting anything. Went back to auth routes. That. Down a line. Let's do this. Let's do auth cookie. Save. Login. Cookies, auth cookie. Hey, look at that. Now, if we go to jwt.io, Down here, take this. Look at that. Login information. I love it. Love it when a plan comes together. It's amazing. All right. So let's go back into here then. Back this out. Settings. Dot config. Dot settings. Import settings. Auth ID token. Cookie name. Config. Auth. And then we log in. Cool. All right. Let's go over here. Terminal. Get status. Get add all. Got auth with auth 0. Halfway working. Saying halfway working because right now it'll only in theory work for session based stuff. And what I really need it to do is if we go to localhost /docs, that's new. No, I'll have to fix that. But it's not checking the authorization header for the token. So you won't be able to authenticate through an API. But that'll be a thing for another day. So yeah, if you came and watched, I appreciate it. If you hung around for a while, I appreciate that as well. Yeah, we'll catch you another night.